Having So, namaste. Thanks for joining for this session of organization development and change in 21st century. This is a very important course because change is an inevitable aspect of life, and change is anyway occurring in the nature. Uh, Change is happening, we are changing, but development is a more conscious process. We call development to a conscious change process. So this in this course we discussed about a consciously designed change process. That means understanding what is needed in the change process or to change our situation, and also scientifically identify. uh, so the first process is called diagnosis, means that is about knowing what needs to be done, and the next process, the second process, is about identifying interventions, what is to be done. So I thought that I can share some of the new research work which our team is doing in this sphere of managing self and development. You might recall in our session we talked about individual level intervention, and in a passe I also mentioned that mindfulness, yoga, contemplative practices like qigong can be good interventions for at the individual level. Uh, I would like to talk a little more about the individual level interventions, which is certainly part of the organization, and how yoga and the Indian wisdom can be helpful in identifying the appropriate intervention. So, in order to understand what is the good or appropriate intervention at individual level, we need to understand what is the level of self. What do we consider human self? So human self in the Indian tradition, and that includes Buddhist tradition as well as Vedantic tradition and other Sankhya and yogic tradition, etc. They talk about human self being constituted, comprises of 5 layers: Annamaya Kosh, that is physical sheath or physical layer; Pranamaya Kosh, which is the sheath of vitality; Manomaya Kosh, which is the sheath of emotions; and Vijnanamaya Kosh, which is the sheath of mental uh, executive functions, or mental layer, which is related to the logic and intellect. And if all 4 layers are aligned, we can say that the Anandamaya Kosh is always there. When all previous 4 layers are aligned, we experience Anandamaya Kosh. We can look at interventions from this perspective of the five layers of self. And uh, my proposition is that in order to develop ourselves, in order to change ourselves in the desirable direction, we need to have intervention at all 4 levels. So we cannot hope to uh, acquire higher levels of development, to reach to the higher levels of development, just by making interventions at one level. Say at the level of cognition, we come to know about the personality type, we come to know about our dysfunctionalities, and then by knowing it, by experiencing it at the Vijnanamaya Kosh, we cannot change ourselves to the desirable direction, even though we might be knowing what needs to be changed, until Manomaya Kosh, Pranamaya Kosh, and Annamaya Kosh, physical self, energy body, and our emotions are also not aligned. You might recall in the individual level intervention, we also discussed uh, rider, elephant, and pathway model. And you can probably recall that rider is the cognitive self, logical mind; elephant is the emotional mind; and pathway is the pathway on which elephant can walk. Change process is compared with this allegory, and it is said that most of the change processes are failed not because of rider, it is because of emotional self. It's because of the elephant. How to contain that elephant, uh, which is a reflection of our emotional self. To contain the emotional self, we need to strengthen our Annamaya Kosh and Pranamaya Kosh, and that is done with the proper food, sleep, and activity. To strengthen the elephant, we also need to strengthen Pranamaya Kosh, which is about which can be strengthened with the breathing exercises, and Manomaya Kosh is about emotions. So actually, Manomaya Kosh or emotions are resultant or it has a huge kind of bearing on Annamaya Kosh and Pranamaya Kosh. If my Annamaya Kosh is strong and healthy, if my Pranamaya Kosh is strong and healthy, naturally my Manomaya Kosh will also be stronger. And that has impact on the Vijnanamaya Kosh as well. So we need to pick up interventions at all uh, 5 levels, at all 4 levels at least. I will come to another point, um, and here is a person who has uh, ICDES World, uh, based on the teachings of Acharya Sriram Sharma ji. He has developed a process called 5 layer or Panchakosh purification sadhana. That is a good example of interventions at the individual level, but not intervening only at one aspect, not only making intervention at physical or emotional or cognitive aspect, but having a constellation, having a more integrated approach where he recommends intervention at all 5 levels. So at the physical level, yogasana, fasting, element purification, austerity, these are the interventions. At the ethical level or pranamaya kosh, the practices are pranayam, bandhas, mudras. That is pranamaya kosh level intervention. Astral body or the manomaya kosh level intervention are related to mantra chanting, meditation, tatak, and cosmic body or Vijnanamaya Kosh level interventions are some more spiritual interventions. Uh, in a simplified way, we can say that at the individual level intervention, we should start with the Annamaya Kosh and take care of our food and asanas. At the Pranamaya Kosh, we need to use the breathing exercises, which is pranayam, to prolong our breathing and strengthen our body. At the Manomaya Kosh, we need to practice Chitta Prasad, that is social behavior, appropriate social behavior. What is the appropriate social behavior? Appropriate social behavior is uh, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Pecha. This is common in Buddhist practice as well as yogic practice. In the Buddhist practice and yogic practices, they say that for the people who are like you, we need to have Maitri, friendliness. Karuna, those who are in deeper suffering than we are, we need to have compassion for them. So that is Karuna. Mudita, those who are better than us, towards them we should have Mudita. And Upeksha is means ignorance, means overlooking, not giving attention, not directing our energy too much towards them, to those who are not on the right path. So that is Upeksha. That is Chitta Prasad. So that is the intervention at Manomaya Kosh. We need to have interventions at the Pranamaya Kosh and Manomaya Kosh to avoid the ailments like anxiety, depression, dependence, sentimentality at Manomaya Kosh. Along with that, Manomaya Kosh level interventions can be specifically for those ailments. Like for anxiety, we need to use the cognition. We need to do some exercises, writing down what is bothering us, writing down what may actually happen, because most of the time anxiety is about our future or about our past, not in the present time. So the yogic practices help us to bring us and bring our consciousness to the present time, uh, at present, at the moment. That is these are the intervention for the anxiety. And and similarly at the Vijnanamaya Kosh, we need to have some interventions which are related to finding the purpose of our life, focusing on one thought and focusing on one idea, or focusing on one image, that is dharana, and dhyan, that is meditation. When all four koshas are aligned, Anandamaya Kosh can emerge. That can be further strengthened by meditation and deeper yogic practices. So we are not talking about the meditation and deeper yogic practices, but I thought, since we are having this live intervention, uh, live interaction, so we can talk about the intervention at individual level. And when we say individual level intervention, we need to recognize that individual is not the individual. It is layered model, layered view of self, which is popular, which is very useful uh, in terms of the modern medicine, as well as in terms of the as well as it is propounded in the wisdom tradition. And for each layer, we need to identify the appropriate intervention to have the fully functional personality. So if you have any questions about this, whatever we have discussed, or about the course, you can ask. Otherwise, we can consider this session to be closed. If there are any questions, I'm asking my team if there are any questions. Okay, thank you. So we can consider this session closed.